At least it doesn't work for me, he said. But he demonstrates something that does work. Dr. Lin worked as a psychologist at Hawaii State Hospital for 4 years. Because of the work he was doing and his reputation in Hawaii, Hawaii State Hospital, the prisons and the hospitals in Hawaii, unfortunately, are some of the worst conditions and have some of the most hardened criminals and individual cases that you would see. So he was called in as a psychologist and brought on staff and asked to do his work. He said, I worked on the dangerous ward where they kept the criminally insane. Psychologists quit on a monthly basis. The staff called in sick a lot, or the staff simply quit. People would walk through the wards where I worked with their back against the wall, afraid of being attacked by patients. It was not a pleasant place to live, work, or visit. Dr. Lin agreed to come to work at this hospital, and he agreed to have an office to review patient files, but he never in 4 years saw one single patient. He sat with the patient files, and while he looked at those files, he practiced the ancient Hawaiian ho'oponopono. After a few months, according to documents, patients that had been shackled were being allowed to walk freely. Others who had been heavily medicated were getting completely off their medications. And those who had no chance of ever being released were being freed. Not only that, but the staff began to enjoy coming to work. Absenteeism and turnover disappeared. The ward ended up with more staff than needed because patients were being released and staff was showing up for work. The change was so momentous, the ward closed. He's known as the psychologist that went to work at a state hospital. And what happened during his tenure was so dramatic, it led to the closing of the whole ward. So because of that, people started trying to find this man, who he is and what he was doing. Now, if you know anything about Hawaiian culture, most Hawaiians absolutely, positively do not want to be in front of a group of people teaching, talking, sharing. They're very private. They see what they do as very sacred. They don't want the limelight, and they believe that if you're meant to find them, you'll find them. As a matter of fact, that's why the Hawaiian Islands were basically taken away or given away, because the Hawaiians don't believe you own anything. They think everybody shares everything, and it's just a very interesting, different culture there. But Dr. Lin has agreed to talk, and rather than work with a few individuals, he now shares some. And this is what he had to say. He said, here's the bottom line. When I was working at Hawaii State Hospital, the way I worked with patients was not to work on them, but to work with my perception of them. Now, this is radical. When we talk about being connected and being responsible for everything in the world, this man really gets it. What he gets is, if we say there's a war going on and I'm somehow responsible, what he's saying is, I am at all times and in all ways responsible of my perception that of anything that's in my field of awareness. So if you come to me after church and you tell me something that's troubling or happy or whatever, I now have to manage that information, correct? Every bit of information we all have, we are all managing it. We're all touching it with our own thoughts. His concept is, be careful how you touch the information of your life. Be careful your perception. He goes on to say, I would petition the divinity in me and ask that whatever was in me, as I perceived patients in a certain way, or staff, or the building, anytime I was annoyed or irritable, whatever was going on in me, I made amends for that. I followed the process of asking for forgiveness and allowing the divinity to convert whatever the memories are that cause me to perceive people as being sick, as being angry, as being broken. I convert those to zero. He uses the term zero. And the best way I know to explain that is non-judgment, non-attachment, just as Jesus taught. It's that the alchemist would explain it as, once something has been transmuted and there's no energy around it, it just is. He said, I wanted to come to work without judgment or preconceived notions. And so I make amends before I come to work. And while I'm working, I keep noticing inside of me to find anything that says or believes that something is imperfect. When I leave the hospital, I do the cleaning again. I want to make sure that I don't take anything home, any problem in my mind which will stay with me. I want to give up the debt that I hold in my mind. Forgive us this debt that we hold in our mind. I'm very clear, I'm not working on anybody else. I'm actually not even working on myself. I'm working on the memories, the thoughts, the beliefs that create my experience. Ernest Holm, the co-founder of Religious Science, which is Unity's sister organization, said, we reduce any condition to a mental concept and then correct what needs correcting in that mental concept. Reduce it to a thought and you can heal that thought. Eric Butterworth, who was a Unity minister and writer, said, our goal is not to set anything right. Our goal is to first see it right. The goal is to see it right. Quantum science now tells us this, that the observed and the observer are inextricably linked, that whatever we're observing, the state of mind that we have influences that we're looking at. And so I ask the question again, what do you see? And can you imagine now perhaps what was being said with scriptures like pray without ceasing? To constantly cleanse and let go, to have no judgment, to let go of any attachments. And finally, Dr. Lynn says, I don't purify the person, place, or thing. I neutralize any energy that is associated with the person, the place, or a thing. Another common saying that he has that I thought was very interesting, Dr. Lynn, when he's training new people, will ask them, what's the object of baseball? Because he loves baseball. So he asks a group, what's the object of baseball? And one person says, well, it's to hit home runs. No. And the other one said, well, it's to win the game. No. And finally someone says, well, the object of baseball is to keep your eye on the ball. Yeah, that's right. That's it. So he then asks, what's the object of your life? For him, the object is keep your eye on your divinity. And when your eye is on your divinity and we're focused on the truth of who we are and disentangling ourselves from our circumstances, and we can get really clear on this, everything around us begins to take care of itself. So 3 things I want to share with you as a takeaway. When he's asked about teaching how do you teach this? Dr. Lynn always says, I can't teach a crowd. I can teach an open heart. The most important thing that he says for an individual to have, first and foremost, is an open heart. Do you have an open heart? Do you believe the kingdom of heaven is here and now? Do you believe the kingdom of heaven is here now for you? Yeah. Do you believe that possibility? Is your heart open to that? That's the first step. If we believe that, he would say, you're in fertile territory. That is the first step. Believe it's here. Believe it's here for you. Believe it's here for you now. And so if you believe it's here for you, and it's here now, then the question becomes, where am I? I'm somewhere outside of the kingdom of heaven. Because the good news is the kingdom of heaven is here now, and guess what? The kingdom of hell is too. Has anybody else lived in the kingdom of hell? Yes. We all know that we have. Charles Fillmore talks about heaven and hell being not places but states of consciousness, that we live in those at all time. So when we realize that this is here now, we're open to this, then he would ask us to question yourself, are you living from a memory or are you living from inspiration? He says, memories are old programs replaying, reshaping what you think, what you believe, and how you see. Memories color everything. Just as I said earlier, if someone comes up to me and shares with me some information, good, bad, or indifferent, I color it with my own thoughts. Those thoughts are memories. We handle all of our thoughts with our own memories.